Hey guys, so I've been on YouTube a lot recently, shocker, and I've noticed a lot of people who play their drums very well, but the way they place their drums and what area they place their drums in is incorrect. And the reason I say incorrect is because there's a certain way to set up your drums that is best for you as the individual drummer. Now, each person is going to have their own different setup. There is no right way to set it up, but there is a wrong way. And the wrong way is to do anything that keeps you from your full playing ability. Now, the way I set up my drum set is best for me, and it's going to be different for you and for anyone else you show this video to. But this works for me, so I'm going to show you the way I set up my drums very specifically in order so you can get a better feel of what you do and why you do it, because that's the key question is why. Why do you set your drums up like that? Why is your tom at that height? Why is your snare drum at that height? Why is your hi-hat all the way across the stage? Whatever the question may be, the answer, I can't talk this morning. Whatever the answer may be, the question is always why, and that's a good question to have. Never be ashamed to ask a drummer why they do something. In fact, I love it. If you ever see me at a gig or ever see me anywhere, and you ask me why I do something in my drum set, it's a fun question to answer. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the most important part of the drum set, the snare drum, and what you should feel about that. Now, before we can talk about the snare drum, we have to talk about the throne. Now, why the throne, you may be asking? Well, the throne appropriates where you are in relevance to your drum set, especially your snare drum. If I set my throne up way back here, I'm useless to this entire drum set. So I gotta set it up in a good spot. Now, I always start with the kick drum when I'm setting stuff up because that's the hardest to move once everything is put in place. I can move the throne around however I want, but I cannot move the bass drum once all of this is in place. I've got a mic on it, I've got these overhead mics, all this stuff around it. That ain't gonna move. So I set that up where I want it first. And then I put my throne exactly where my right foot lines up with the pedal. And it feels comfortable. I don't feel like I'm bending my ankle in any weird way. I'm not too high, I'm not too low. And that allows me to get the best playing out of my right foot because it's comfortable. It's just ergonomic. Everything is straight down the line. You can tell when I play that the beater is going direct into the head. And then second thing I always set up is my hi-hat stand. The hi-hat stand goes wherever your foot naturally lays. So if I put my foot on the pedal, I sit down on the throne, wherever my foot naturally lands, that's where I want to put my hi-hat stand. Now, I play 16-inch hi-hats, so that's never a problem of, well, it's too far out or too close in. Typically, they're in just the perfect spot, and I can, slide my hand just barely in between the snare drum and the cymbals. And then the height of the throne, I'm at a height where my legs are going down. I'm not standing up, or I'm not, flat to where my knees are up by the rim of the snare. I'm just comfortably sitting to where my hip flexors are not too scrunched in and my legs feel comfortable. Now, if you're going to set your throne height, make sure you have your pedals, make sure you have your hi-hat stand and your bass drum stand with you there, and if you don't, always adjust, get up on your toes, because when you set your throne height, you got to make sure you keep in mind that the pedal is going to add a good inch or two to where you're sitting. Because even at full push down, this pedal is still sitting off of the ground about an inch. And my heel is off the ground another inch or two. So you want to make sure you have accountability for that. And again, it's primarily whatever is most comfortable. There's not a right way to do this. But you never want to do it to where your legs are up into your chest. You never want to do it to where you're basically standing up and the throne has no relevance. You want to make sure that your whole body weight is resting on the throne, and you, the drummer, have full capability to access whatever you want without having to adjust your weight. So back to the snare drum. The snare drum needs to be three things primarily. It needs to be comfortable, so you need to feel okay with where it's at. It needs to be helpful, so where it's at locationally needs to be correct to the rest of the drums to where I can access anything that I want. And it needs to sound good, which you may be wondering, what does the location of the drum have to do with sound? Well, it has to do with how you hit it. The way I typically do my snare drum, if you were wondering, is... The way I typically do my snare drum is it's a little farther away from me than most people. Some people like to be right up onto it. Some people like to be, just knees at the halfway point. For me, I like to be a little bit farther back. The primary reason is I've been told many, many times by different people that your shoulders are too tight. And I could never tell why it would be. And part of it is the look of when I would play like this, my shoulders had to be like far back in order for me to hit the spot that I want. And I didn't really think about this much, but A, shoulders should be relaxed when you're playing, always. B, my snare drum was right up into my legs, and it looked weird. B, it didn't help my playing because to get the sound I wanted, I had to bring my shoulders back and have my elbows all the way back here. I looked like a chicken. You can go check out my old videos. I look weird. But, so all I had to do was move my throne back a little bit, adjust my pedals just a touch, and now with my shoulders relaxed, I'm playing in the perfect spot that I want to play in. It's not at center, it's just a little bit past it. That gets you a little bit more overtone, a little bit more ring. Some people hate that. I personally think it gives the drum more life. So placement there is perfect for me. Height-wise, I wanted to make sure of a couple things. When I first got the drum set, I didn't know anything about how to set it up. I just played it. I played it the way they put it there. And I started hitting, and I started noticing my leg would feel super sore after any practice time. And it didn't take me long to realize, well, it's because I'm hitting my leg over and over again whenever I hit the snare drum. If you have your snare drum too low, you're going to be hurting yourself, and you're not going to be able to get an effective stroke every single time. Some people can get through it, like Casey Cooper, Cooper Drummers. He has his snare drum real low, but he also hits where his hands go basically between his knees. So he doesn't really have a problem with that. Most people, however, I tell, you want to have closer to not a flat palm, but kind of close to it, to where you can get an effective stroke out, which means they got to be over your legs. So two things that help with that are the fact that my throne is raised up and my legs are moved to this direction. Since it's farther out, I have a solid couple inches between my leg and the snare drum. Also, I like my snare drum a little bit high up. Now, it's not Todd Sucherman levels of high where it's up here, but again, that's for Todd Sucherman. It works for him. Most people that won't work for. So for me, I have it just to where if I were to bring my arm up at a comfortable position and put my stick in, I'm on the drum. So I'm not having to think about, well, it's a little too high, a little too soft. As long as I can just bring my arm up from a position, I'm just above the snare drum in the playing zone. This is comfortable for me. It's not quite a flat forearm, but it's just a little bit of an angle. So I have that, and that allows me to get the best playing out because my shoulders tend to be more relaxed. I'm hitting the correct playing zone, and everything works together. Now, as for the rest of the drums, I'm able to make sure this conforms to the rest of them because it's in a central location that I can always come back to. When I bring up my sticks to play, I'm already right here. This is not an area that I have to think about going to. I have to think about going to the toms for the most part. Not anymore, but when you start out, you got to think about where you're going. I have to think about where the cymbals are, especially when I'm out on someone else's gig. But the snare drum, it's always right here, and that's what you want. Because at that point, the only variable is, well, what is my right hand or left hand doing based off of whether you're hitting the right or the hi-hat. And then, as for conformability, it goes to each of the drums very well. This thing is lined up perfectly with my playing zone for the high tom. It's lined up across to my 14-inch tom. I could draw a line from the center of my hi-hat to the 14-inch tom. It's ergonomic, so I don't have to think about where I'm going It's just a straight line. I play tenors on the drum line, and this is the same motion that we have to make whenever we're switching drums. The 16-inch tom is a little farther back, but the primary thing I'm doing with the 16-inch tom is I'm building or I'm doing fills up and down. I'm rarely ever using my left hand to get here while my right hand is back, but even if I am, I can do it because my right hand can go and my left hand can go right in the playing zones. So, and then cymbal-wise, cymbals can be placed almost anywhere. We'll go over that in the next video, but cymbal-wise, everything is within downstroke to the snare drum. So if I'm hitting this crash cymbal, as soon as I come off of it, I'm back on the snare. Same with the China, same with the ride. Whatever cymbal I have, as long as it's a downward stroke, I'm back on the snare drum. So that's how you get it ergonomic. And then the last thing, sound. Sound-wise, it's going to be a little bit different for every player based off of how your stroke is, based off of what part of the stick you're hitting, what part of the drum you're hitting with your stick. Really, it all comes down to a couple things. A, where you're hitting on the drum. Like I said earlier, I like to hit not in the center, but a little bit higher up. Just like an inch or so. That gives you, and honestly to me, gives you more body, gives you more tone, gives you more resonance to work with. Especially with these microphones and recording, I need all of that I can get. So, I'm hitting a little bit higher up on the snare drum. I'm at the point where, height-wise, I can get a very effective rim shot, and which is what I like to do, especially when I'm playing live. But if I need to just do ghost notes, or I just want to hit the center of the head without touching the rim, I can do that. And it's also at the perfect height to where the beat of the stick, you can always check, and you can always see it's farther in length than it is in width. That's because the more meat you can get on the drum head, the better it'll sound, just in general. You can do some stuff where you get up on the tip, and that's typically when you just want to go for that sound. But if you're just playing backbeats, you always want the more meat of the stick on the drum. So, and then, obviously, tuning comes down to it, snares, snare tightness, snare tension, all of that comes into play. But if you're not comfortable behind your snare drum, that's what'll get you. This video is already getting pretty long, so we're going to end it here. I'm going to go into more detail on the other things in my setup in the next video. So please be sure to subscribe in order to see that. Hit the bell button so you can be alerted when that comes out. Be sure to like this video. Leave me a comment below. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you do behind your drum set that helps you get around effectively. Tell me what you think I could do that helps. Again, this setup is always evolving. I'm always changing this in some facet to see if I can make something work better for me, which is I urge you to do as well. So leave a comment below, tell me what you think, and I will see you in the next video.